Hello and welcome back to RamsTalkPodcast. Well, it's 7 losses in a row. It's the worst form since that season all those years ago. We wanted to forget about it, but it's been brought up time and time again. It's difficult at the moment. We know it is. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to digest it together. We're going to be a bit of a therapy for your Sunday evening. And to help me out tonight, I've got the one, the only Callum Boocock. Cal, how you doing, mate?
I'm all good, mate. Yeah, I could do with that some of that therapy you were just talking about. I think all of us can. It's going to be an interesting chat, but it's we're going to have to just be as upbeat as we can.
Yeah, and look, it's broken record FC at the moment, isn't it? These episodes every Sunday, the episodes midweek, they're going to sound very samey until we manage to get a point or we see something that's better than we've seen for the last month or so. Also joining me is Jack Doughty. Jack, how are you, mate?
Recovering. I think it's a difficult time to be a Derby fan at the moment, isn't it? The performances are pretty mediocre. We're not really creating many chances, so there isn't really much to talk about, really, is there?
There's not, no, but we'll give it a go. We'll give it a go on this Sunday evening. Cal, let's talk about how we set up first. I think we all spoke before the team news was announced, and it was pretty clear that we were all kind of guessing the team. Obviously, Matt Clark coming into the centre-back role. We knew that was happening, but we all kind of knew the players, where they were playing. So there's no kind of surprises in that sense. What was your feeling seeing that team when it was announced?
Well, I mean, it's the first fan hub 11 I've managed to guess in the last few weeks because it's probably the most predictable one we could have gone for because there wasn't really much else we could have really done. When you were looking at your pre-game, you were looking at the availability just because of the injuries we've got and obviously personnel, obviously Matt Clark coming in. I wasn't obviously surprised. I think it was the strongest we've probably done in terms of personnel and the shape in terms of 3-5-2 is what we've seen in the last few weeks. So I think it was what one potentially the best he could have done. It's obviously just didn't result in any points, but there's nothing new there.
Exactly. And Jack, same to you. I mean, does that team fill you with confidence when you saw it when it was announced?
I think when you look at the 11, there is still like a bit of hope. I think when the deeper issue is not to try and discredit the academy, but we've got 3 academy boys who haven't made a senior appearance on the bench, and there isn't many game changes in the team at the minute. So the 11 that start, they've got to start well, or else what we've got to come on if we are losing, which seems inevitable most games now, just isn't getting you off your seat. Now, obviously, the likes of Corey Blackett-Taylor and Dejan Brown and the exciting players are now injured. It's a shame, really.
Yeah, it is. And I'll admit, as much as it's nice to see academy players on the bench, I'm not sure I was ready for 3 at once. And I think I knew that we weren't going to see any of them. It's a fantastic experience. It's fantastic for the academy, but it just shows us the position that we're in with all of these injuries. Cal, obviously, we've got to talk about new signing. Matt Clark came into the team. Paul Warne described him as a drag and drop. And I think for the most part, he had a good game. I was worried the first couple of minutes when he got spun and then he managed to get a foot on it and we got away with one. But he's exactly what I remember, just a little bit less hair. I think I'm kind of going that trajectory. But yeah, relatively solid performance for his 3rd debut.
Yeah, as we said when we signed, from what we heard from the Middlesbrough obviously preview from when he came and when he was announced with Jake, it was basically as it was almost rinse and repeat from what we had a few years ago. He's a tried and trusted Championship defender. He's well established in this league. He knows exactly what he needs to do to put in a probably solid 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 performance. As I say, the first couple of minutes, I'm exactly the same as you. I remember him doing those Cruyff turns within the set of his own box, and so I wasn't really surprised when he got the ball caught under his feet, really. But But no, a very solid debut. Nearly got a goal towards the end with a header. But yeah, I think it's what we need, especially with Curtis Nelson out. Cashin now has moved on, and what we need now is quality in defence. Unfortunately, Fozzie this season is probably now for the first time since probably in the last 2 or 3 years, really showing that age. And I think even at centre half, he's struggling. So I think we definitely needed that strength in depth at the back, and I wouldn't have gone far as Matt Clark in probably what you could have got in terms of quality and obviously for the price.
Yeah, I think when we're talking Matt Clark, the Borough fans called him Baldini. They really, really like Matt Clark, and I think we all knew Matt Clark as a decent defender. I think at times on Saturday, yesterday, he looked levels of what we have seen in terms of the recent performances. I mean, I know Aaron Cashin has been good, but I feel like he's probably had half an eye on this move probably since that Burnley injury. And, you know, it is disappointing, but Matt Clark for, what is it, reported £200,000 is a no-brainer. And I say, first 5 minutes, he looked quite shaky. He got turned on the edge of his own box by their striker. And after that, I don't think he put a foot wrong. He was certainly one of the better performances on the day.
Yeah, and look, he was playing balls up to Salverson, and in the first half it was poor. But I kind of understand that. You know, he's in a new team, he's finding his feet. Rule one of defending, Jack, you'll be able to tell everyone that's watching is clear your lines when you get the opportunity to do so. So yeah, I think he'll grow in stature. He's definitely that drag and drop. He's obviously got a new partner coming in. We'll talk about him a bit later. Callum, with the signing, and like I said, we'll talk about that later, but do you think we're going to see this 3 moving forward? We've obviously got Phillips coming back from injury. Do you foresee that we will keep with this 3-5-2 formation or an iteration of that?
Yeah, I think so. I think, well, it kind of really depends on the fullbacks or the wing backs because we don't have any at the moment. We're playing wingers at fullbacks, centre mids at fullbacks. It's kind of that's where we're at the moment. But in terms of the back 3, yes, I would say so, because you've got obviously a right-footed centre half who we'll talk about in a bit. We've got the left-footed centre half in Matt Clark, and then you can either put Nat Phillips or Fozzie in the middle. So yeah, I probably would say so. It's a bit more. Well, you'd think it would be solid. We could keep leaking goals. So you'd probably say if you were going to do the 2, it would be Matt Clark and probably the new signing, which we'll talk about in a bit. But I could definitely see this 3 continuing.
Yeah, I agree. Jack, let's talk about the first half. I think for me, it was a case of let's get in at the half and let's see what happens. Obviously, we know what happens shortly after. But I think it was, look, they are levels above. And what Warne said in terms of if it was an isolated performance, no one would really bat an eyelid because they've spent a lot of money. On paper, they are a very good side. Didn't really see that yesterday, in all honesty. I didn't think that they were promotion ready or where they are in the table. However, that first half, it just felt again that we were playing to the wings. Like I said about Matt Clark, he was knocking it up to Salverson. I mean, Salverson, as much as I'm excited about him, he didn't win anything in the air yesterday. You know, and look, that's fine. That's absolutely fine, because if you can do enough as a striker to ensure that we pick up second balls and we get the ball in a good area, we can, you know, play through the lines with Kenzo and Ozo and Ebu, then that's absolutely fine. But what it seemed yesterday, that we were launching it long at times. It was coming straight back. We weren't getting a grip in the midfield. Anytime we had a bit of a grip, it was, let's pass it to the wings. And obviously, we'll talk about it later, but our wide players are probably our poorest performers of this season in Jackson and Osborne. It just seems really strange to play that way. What were your thoughts? That's really long-winded about me talking about the first half, but what are your thoughts on how we were playing in that first half?
I think if you isolate the first half and you give it to somebody who doesn't watch the Championship, they will say it's 2 poor sides going at it, because there was a whole lot of nothing going off. I mean, other than, I think Zetterstrom had maybe 1 save. I can't remember their keeper doing maybe 1 save himself. It was pretty much just two teams who look pretty average, to be honest with you. I mean, we didn't look bad. We didn't look great. It was just your typical performance that we're getting at the minute, where it's a whole lot of trying, not a lot productivity. Like you said, the wide areas at the moment are just a concern, and we rely so heavily on the ball going into the box. And when the ball doesn't go into the box, what do? We put the ball in the box again, even though it's not working. I think Jerry H probably had about 3 touches in that first half, because everything we went long was to Salverson, which is, he's 6'2", he's a big Norwegian guy, he's going to win the headers hopefully. But I'd just like to see us play into Jerry Yates's feet a little bit more, and get like your midfield runners. Now that Ozo's back, we all know how much of a powerhouse he is. He is like an ox. He's just big, wide, fast. I mean, he covers ground so well. I'd just like to see us get him on the ball more. And I mean, when Osborne came into the midfield second, I mean, I know we're not talking about second half, but when Osborne actually came into the midfield, and we just didn't have anything beyond. And that's what we lost. Again, going on to the changes, I know it's been mentioned in the chat with what happened at halftime. I'm sure we're going to get onto it. I'll probably just segue there now. I think the changes at halftime killed us, because I think in the first half we were so in the game, and then 5 minutes you've got a holding midfielder playing at centre half. Okay, is Jake Rooney proved much in the Championship? No, but he's an actual centre back. Why not just play a centre-back in his natural position, leave Ibu Adams in midfield? Instead, Ibu gets rolled, Tom Cannon squares it, and it has to be Diaz, Brereton bloody Diaz, every time. He always seems to score against us. And for me, that's where the game was lost, is too many players playing out of position, too many players being asked to do jobs that they can't do. And unfortunately, that's where we're at the minute.
Yeah, we are. We really are. And just looking at some of the comments that are coming through on YouTube, if you are watching and you want to comment, then please do so. It'd be great to hear from you. Lots to talk about Kenzo, Cal. Lisa Howard said, for me, Kenzo's the most gifted footballer at the club, but Warne is ruining him. Feel for the lad. If we stick with Warne, we'll go down. Sad to say, but that's a fact. I've backed him, but I've totally lost faith. I think a lot of people are in that position, Lisa. Chris as well has said that Malcolm Christie was saying on Radio Derby that coaches have sapped any confidence out of Kenzo. Comment that he just hid for the most of the game out on the wings. I mean, in terms of winning games and being in games, you need the likes of Kenzo Houdmine on the ball. You need the likes of Jerry Yates on the ball. And as we've said there, they are just anonymous. I mean, Jerry Yates cut an isolated figure by himself for large periods of this season. But I think it was worse yesterday. And you've got a striker up there with him that's meant to give him more support and help him. Why are we not seeing the best of our creative players? Is it a case of they're being told to just be in there and run? Is it a confidence thing? Because we're in a position where we're at, and no one wants to get on the ball, get on the half turn and play through the thirds. Is it a mix of both? What's your opinion, Cal?
Your creative players can't get on the ball when we're lumping it 50, 60 odd yards. Like you can't play with anything when you go in. Your centre halves are getting the ball, and 9 times out of 10, the midfields are kind of not making the movement, but they're not making an effective movement to get the ball, which then means that straight away the defenders are then looking straight up to Salverson as an easy get out, or trying to play it out to the wing back, who then inevitably will either try and take on a player, 9 times out of 10 goes out of play, or we misplace a pass. It's a part confidence, part style of play, part, I'll probably say even poor form, because I think Kenzo this season is dipped in and out. Look, he's young, he's adapting to the Championship, he's got the quality, we've seen it, but there has been games, even when we were going through the patches where we weren't on this obviously losing streak, where he was dipping in and out of games. I mean, away from home, he was never to be seen in some fixtures. That it was only really at home where he'd come alive and get on the ball and have the opportunity to get on the ball. Yates, as you say, has been a lone figure on his own. It just seemed rinse and repeat, even though he had Salverson with him, because Salverson couldn't get really much, presence around in terms of trying to get on the ball or try and win his headers or anything like that. Yates was feeding off, I can't even say scraps. There was nothing for him to get on the ball with. So it's just because we're not getting them the ball. In terms of our creative players need to be on the half turn, as you say, or showing themselves. But you can't in this style of play because they don't have an opportunity to, and that's coming from the sidelines. It's that there seems to be a void where if we're not seeing that first pass, it's going long. And the trouble is then your creative players are just going to be sat there in the middle doing like head tennis like this. So
yeah, I agree. I think the issue we have at the moment is I feel like we're deploying Kenzo wrong. Paul Warne talks about his midfielder getting the ball off the centre halves. Well, how many short passes went in this midfield on Saturday? I think we can count it on one hand how many times we actually tried to play through the middle, whether that's to try and combat their press. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't really see why you should try and change for who you play. And this has always been a bit of a concern of mine with Paul Warne is he always seems to change for the team rather than we are going to play this way, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Whereas every game, it just seems like we are set up to nullify rather than express ourselves. For me, Kenzo should play up and around the two strikers. If we play 3-5-2, he should be the highest point, and at times he's the lowest. And I kind of get to some degree why they want Adams up there. If we are going to play direct, Ibu Adams is a warrior. He's going to put a tackle in. He's going to win a second ball. But for me, you want your creative player higher up the pitch. We've seen it. I mentioned it last time I was on when we played Watford. The little slide pass that Kenzo's got, no one else has got that delicacy. Like nobody in this team has got that little bit of cutting edge about them to make them little, they look easy passes, easy 5-10 yard split balls, but they're so difficult to wait. I mean, we've seen it. There was a chance in the first half where I can't remember who it was who overhit the pass now. It was played back into the midfield. Ball went in behind. Jackson ended up running to the advertising board. And Caden Jackson, I know he's, people's opinion isn't particularly high, but he is probably the fastest player in the team. So if the fastest player in the team isn't being able to catch up with the ball, who's got a chance? And this is, for me, why playing your best technical player 50 yards away from the goal is pointless. And we've seen it earlier on in the season. He was box bursting. He was scoring goals. He was creating chances. He was actually getting in one-on-one. When was the last time Kenzo was in on goal one-on-one? It hasn't happened. And I just think we've gone a little bit mixed message with get the midfielders to pick the ball up, whereas Kenzo can't do that. He should be higher up the pitch. If you want someone to do that, bring somebody in who can. I know we've been linked with Lewis O'Brien. I've seen in the chat he's off to Swansea. And to be honest, I can't blame him. I mean, this team at the moment, this is the issue with transfers, is who's going to want to come, because the style of football is not particularly interesting. If you've got a young player, you're not going to send him to Derby because he's in a battle, he's in a scrap, and no one wants to get a relegation on their CV. So it's very, very difficult at the moment.
Yeah, we'll get on to transfers in just a little bit, but let's talk now about that second half. Obviously, we're going at 0-0. My thoughts were, look, if we can come out and we can find something, another gear, then potentially we'll be in a game. And when I saw that sub, Callum, and I saw that Harness was coming on from the ambi, I mean, the first thought was, right, he's crocked again. We've lost another player.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound as bad as that. I think it was a hip injury, a back injury that just kind of seized him up. But bringing on Marcus Harness and obviously putting Abu Adams to right back. Now, don't get me wrong, when he was deployed there a matter of weeks ago, I think he was quite solid. However, you do lose him from the middle. You lose that bite. You lose that engine in there. We've got Jake Rooney on the bench. Now, we saw Rooney at points last season before his injury, and he played really well. I remember at Peterborough away, I thought he looked really solid. He's a centre-back. He's a right-back. He can play there. Why is Warne not bringing on a tried and tested defender in that situation? Or is it the case that he's not a tried and tested defender at this level? If so, what's he doing on the bench and around the squad? I need to know that, because it feels at the moment that we've said it all season, and Jake's in the chat saying about square pegs in round holes or vice versa. But it just feels all season, every single lineup or every single substitution we make, there is a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah. I think that it's been a similar and familiar case with Warne that's now becoming very, very irritating because I think that you're sat there at half time. If you have to bring Nyambe off and because it's forced, absolutely fine. But play players where they're naturally played. It's rule one of football that there's no point playing a centre mid who's known for getting around the pitch, putting in tackles at right centre back, who then that means they're sacrificing, as you say, that in centre mid. As well as that, we've got Ozo, who's not played a full 90 since November, who's then having to do basically double the workload. And then obviously we see the result of that because he blows up with his calf. And Harness is playing through the middle, who's more of a winger, and he's playing in a 10. You've got Haldmine then having to drop deeper and he's in an 8, which Warne sees as an 8. And I just think that's baffling because, as Jack said earlier, he's more of a 10. He's got to be beyond the strikers. So you kind of sat there going, you've got one substitute decision, which has then resulted in 3 or 4 players playing out of position, which has been where we've been going wrong for the last God knows how long. And obviously this is where fans get very, very irritated and Warne doesn't help himself.
It just seems like a lack of cohesion, doesn't it? From players to manager and manager to players, because as we said, it's a simple 1-for-1 change. It's Jake Rooney, who's a centre-back, right-back, whatever you want to call it, playing at right centre-half, which is virtually right-back anyway, let's be honest. It's the same kind of principle of job. It is bizarre because, like we said, you have to shuffle everybody down the pack slightly to fit in. You know, when the ball came up, Nyambe for Harness, I was a little bit like, what is going on here? Like, I remember seeing Harness running down at half-time thinking, oh, Jackson's hurt. Jackson's got a dead leg from hitting the advertising board. And then to see Nyambe come off, I mean, has anything been said about an injury? Like, I'm not sure. And again, we can talk about medical staff until the cows come home. But listen, it is bizarre. The fact that I remember, I don't know who it was in the chat. It could have been Jake. I'm not sure. That we had Harness, Thompson, Ibu, and one other all playing out of position at the same time. And how do you expect to get anywhere when you're playing players who are more thinking about where to be on the pitch? Because players play better when they're not thinking. It is natural. But when you don't think, you do better. And we've got players who are having to think about everything, micro movements, and that is where mistakes happen.
Yeah, I mean, it is confusing. It really is. That substitution just kind of set the passage of play for the next, 15, 20 minutes. I think once they scored, we did our classic, let's have a go. It seems that we do that. We become a little bit reactionary. But why are we not doing that? Why are we not doing that from the first whistle? And like I said at the top of the show, look, I get Sheffield United are a good team. They've spent millions of pounds. They've got Brereton Diaz, Tom Cannon, Hamer. You know, their squad is probably bottom of the Prem. They'd probably be on more points than Southampton at this point, and be closer to Derby's record, beating their record. But it's very, very confusing to see that. And Jake's put in the chat in terms of Warne says after, look, I'm getting the most out of these players. Well, in my mind, I think you're getting the most from an effort level, because that is the bare foundation of what you expect from a player. But are you getting it in terms of quality? I don't know. Who out there yesterday, Cal, can you say, I think they had a good game, and I think we saw the very best of them? Yeah, you're counting it on one hand. I think you can probably count it on one finger. But who is having a good game for Derby County at the moment?
Zetterstrom. Probably Zetterstrom, to be honest. And then you probably say Clark, who's only just walked in the building. So, I mean, Ibu, I'd probably say he's up there, because I think Ibu's a constant 7, 8 out of 10 unless he played out of position, bless him. So you can't really say, you can't blame him for when he does make a mistake. 9 times out of 10, it's when he's been put in a centre half when he's not a centre half. So, but yeah, that's probably about it. Probably about the 3 of them, and which is worrying, because that's what you need when you're in a relegation scrap is especially at home. And the quality that we've got compared to these teams, you need everyone at minimum 7 out of 10 to get anything out of the game. And as you were saying about the effort levels, when a manager has lost the dressing room in years gone by. You do see then the players switch off, the effort levels go, and I don't think I'm seeing that. I'm seeing the effort levels. They're there. They are, in Warren's words, gassing out. But I think that, like you said, it's a real lack of quality and knowledge of what they're doing on the pitch. They just seem to be void of knowledge of what they're doing tactically. And unless it's a set piece, I don't see anything tactically that we're doing on the pitch, really. And that's what's worrying me, that we're, as you say, looking at when you're making substitutions and trying to make impacts off the bench, like you say, putting players in square pegs and round holes, it's not going to help. And that's what you said. And that's what's contributing to players having really lackluster performances.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with all the players that you said had a good game. I think Ebu struggled second half, but again, that's due to him being played out of position, which is just it's one of them. It's not our decision to make, I suppose. But listen, I think a lot of us would make different decision there. I think let's try and spin a positive. I thought Zetterstrom actually did okay yesterday. His kicking, for once, was spot on. I think we all moan about his kicking, that it can be a little bit suspect. His kicking was really good yesterday. He was actually finding the pitch, which is a start, because some of his shanks, sometimes you just think, wow, mate, your helmet's on backwards or something. But his kicking yesterday, credit to him, was excellent. He was hitting Salverson every single time. I think there was one where he played a diagonal to Ben Osborne, but that would normally be Forsyth if it was in a situation where we could. So I'll let him off with that one. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? It is very difficult at the moment. Like Matt Clark, again, as we said, put 1 foot wrong all game, which was first 5 minutes. Didn't think he did a great deal wrong after that. I think the only issue is one player playing well, one player playing okay, and the rest being bang average or worse is the biggest killer, isn't it? And
well, like you said, when you've got the only positive spin really that we've got is our goalkeeper can kick it. That's what we've got right now to talk about.
Yeah, it's not ideal, is it?
It's not. And Jack, I wanted to come to you because we spoke earlier, and I said to you, "What do you want to talk about?" And you suggested captaincy, and it brings me on to a point that I think it was Malcolm Christie made on Radio Derby about having someone that's going to lead, someone that in these situations when you're losing 6 games in a row, 7 games in a row, that's going to say, give me the ball, or I'm going to pull us out of this hole. And I don't think we've got anyone in that team at the moment that will do that. We've got experience. We talked about Matt Clark, but I think we're really missing a leader. We're missing a key leader. And I think that's the reason that we've seen the captain's armband thrown left, right and centre this season. Was it a mistake not bringing in a natural leader and just throwing it to Mendes-Lang and kind of saying, thanks for your contribution last season, you can have a go at it again? We've seen Cashin wear it, Forsyth wear it. We're now seeing Ben Osborne wear it. Really, who is a captain in this squad?
Yeah, you've asked me a tough question there, Jamie, because we haven't
we
haven't really got a leader as such. I know, obviously, Forsyth's been at the club since 200 BC. He's been here forever, but he's not a natural leader, is he? You don't see him running around, throwing his arms around, cheering people, or putting in them big tackles that transfers. I mean, we've never really replaced Curtis Davis, which is really, that's the last true leader we had. And again, you look at the previous Derby teams from before, there was Curtis Davis, there was Richard Keogh, Chris Martin was a leader. Craig Bryson was a leader on the field. We've never really replaced that kind of leadership, and leadership can be done in multiple ways. Leadership doesn't have to be pointy, shouty. Leadership can be done by going in and making a massive tackle. It can be going and putting your head somewhere where it hurts. Leadership's not just about shouting and pointing. And for me, the only real player who does that is Ebu Adams. And I think, again, is he shouty? Probably not. I call him the smiling assassin because he's always happy. But I feel like as a leader amongst men, if you want one man who can set an example, it's Ebu Adams when he's in midfield, granted. But again, we haven't got a leader. There's no natural captain. For me, I see Salverson doing a lot of G'ing up, but again, he's been here 2 seconds, so you don't really know. And again, I'm hoping the type and the profile we're signing is people who are good characters and they've got that little bit of passion and they care. And just at the minute, the armband fiasco has been down the drain for me since Conor Hourihane wore it. I didn't agree then. I didn't agree with Mendes Lang. And I certainly am not really sure why Ben Osborne is wearing it at the moment. So it's just bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah. And if you want captain material or a leader proven at this level, this late in the day in the transfer window, and we're going to get on to transfers in just a moment.
Good luck.
It's going to cost you millions and millions of pounds. So I don't think we'll be seeing anyone come in that is going to be that kind of leader. Let's just hope that Matt Clark can do it. Let's hope this new lad from Norway can do it. Cal, let's forget about yesterday. Let's talk about transfers.
Oh, thank goodness.
It gives us something else to talk about. Look, if we lose against Norwich next week, this pod is going to be horrible. And I'm not going to be on it. That's going to be
I'm unavailable. I'm unavailable next week.
It's just going to be Jake, I think, next week.
We might have a corner flag post by then, so we might have actually something to talk about.
Might,
positive.
We might. We haven't really focused too much on Paul Warne. I don't want to do that because the episode before that was all on Warne. So like I say, let's just put that to one side. Let's talk about transfers. Firstly, out on Friday evening, we got the news. We got the emotional post from Erin Cashin, a deal believed to be in the region of £9 million for his services, taking him down to Brighton. From my point of view, he deserves it. He stayed around when he could have gone. He goes with our blessing. Yes, we'll miss him. We'll miss him off the pitch, on the pitch. He's just a fantastic person as well as being a fantastic footballer. We knew it was happening, Cal, but what were your thoughts when you see it confirmed? Because there's one thing knowing it's going to happen, and then when it gets confirmed, you start feeling, I guess, the way that you want to feel.
Yeah, I mean, I was just concerned how long it was taking, really. I mean, it was getting towards that time where you're looking on Saturday. I mean, even when Warne in the press conference was going, oh, yeah, he's still training with me. And I was like, no, he cannot play Saturday. His mind is gone. And I don't blame him. His mind, it should be where it should be. And yeah, he will go down, in my personal opinion, as one of the best academy graduates to come out of Moor Farm. I think, especially when you're looking at the financial gain that we've managed to get, it's pure profit. We've nurtured him. He came through that really tough period with the club and stuck by the club when a lot of players within that academy structure did jump ship. Whether that was their own decision or not, but he stuck around with the likes of Max Bird, Thompson, and has really come through and risen through this club to be a real big positive spin on where we wanted the Cat One Academy when it was done. It's probably, when you look at the Mel Morris era, it's probably the big thing that he did was turning that training ground and that academy into what it was, and this is what we wanted to see. And it was a real shame when the academy got depleted as it did during COVID and through administration, and now we're seeing where this academy should be. We're selling players for huge profits, and yes, it's a shame that he's gone, but we can then use this. Well, I'm hoping we do in the next 24 hours. Use it wisely in the terms of finance and reinvest it into the club, and let him go and experience what every lad who goes and grows up and playing football. Unfortunately, the three of us are not going to be able to experience that, but he's going to be able to experience, hopefully, touch wood, going and playing in the Premier League, which will be great to see. I think they need a defender after conceding 7 yesterday. So
I was just
we
about
don't want
to say
talk
that.
About it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Make it stop.
I think he might be in the team sooner rather than later if that defending was anything to go by yesterday. But we have spent a portion of the money, Jack. As soon as it hit our bank account, it was straight out. And we've signed Sondre Langos. That is supposedly the right pronunciation. Jake.
Either that or you just look silly.
Yeah, I do look silly. Well, he does this when he scores, so that's pretty silly as well. So yeah, the Moose, because he's from an area in Norway that's heavily populated by I don't know what the plural for moose is.
Moose-eye.
Moose-eye. I don't even know. But
Mooses.
yeah, Jack, he's young, similar age to Cashin.
Yep.
He's big, he's quick. He's a Norway international. Happens to be Salverson's best mate as well.
Roommates, weren't they? Roommates.
They were. So obviously someone in Derby knows something about him. What's your immediate thoughts seeing that? Obviously the transfer amount has been banded about. I guess we'll know a bit more about the structure and different things like that in the coming days, weeks, months. But it's quite a big outlay on a defender at this point.
I think we've lost a little bit of excitement because of how poor we're playing at the moment. Because we're signing Norwegian centre-backs that he's capped. He's a full international. And look, Norway in previous years was only known for Morten Gans Pedersen, let's be honest, and John Carew. But nowadays, you look through that Norway team, they are really producing some top quality players. They're scattering themselves around Europe now. And I think, I heard, again, tongue-in-cheek maybe, Hoffenheim and Club Bruges was interested. Two clubs who have been in the Champions League in recent years. So if that's the kind of company we've got and we've managed to, pull him on his Viking boat from Norway with Salverson, then it's a brilliant signing. We just got to hope that it's not just a future one, that he can come in and do the business now. I think, from the highlights, he looks pretty good. I spoke to Jake about it on Saturday. He's meant to be pretty pants on the ball, but off it, he is brilliant. Like, he's fast, strong, tall, wins his headers, threat from set piece, which we love. And I can't see no downside. 4 million quid, all right. It's still less than half of what the cash-in money is. And as we said, we've got 24 hours now to hopefully not buy a Harvey White and a Tony Springett. That'd be great.
Or a Marcus
no. Well, the least said the better, really. But it's exciting. It is exciting. And even if we do go down to League One, he's here for 4.5 years, so we've got at least 2 years in him, surely. Like, it's one of them. I'm happy. I'm happy with that. I think when you think about it, you've lost cash in for 9-ish. You brought in Clark and Langus for what, under 4.5 million. It's no brainer. I think it makes us stronger. And that's ultimately what we have to do, is get stronger and fast.
Yeah, I totally agree with Jack. I think when you look at where Derby County have been recruiting over the last few years, it's nice that we are exploring those markets abroad, because that's where we've seen the likes of Brentford and Brighton find these little nuggets and then sell them on for huge profits. And that's where I think Derby are going with, obviously, this data analysis and off the pitch with trying to rebuild the transfer and recruitment policies and stuff like that. So it's really, really good. And I said, 23 years old, he's got a good affiliation with Salverson, which will help that both of them settle in over here, obviously new countries. And as we've seen on the highlights, I think, if you think with him and Clark and even Phillips, that's a very, very tall defence, which obviously Warren will love from set pieces. So I'm excited. Hopefully he can settle straight in.
Let's hope so. And he's obviously got Salverson to help with that. And I think for the most part, yesterday wasn't Salverson's best game. It wasn't. But I think he is settled in pretty well. And I think we'll start seeing the best of him. So, yeah, we've got a new player in the building, which is good. And I think we will, as I said earlier, I think we will go to that 3. Now, obviously, there's been a couple of names banded about. You have to take everything you see on social media with a pinch of salt, because you go, oh, that's interesting. And you look on the profile, they've got 2 followers, and you can clearly see they're just spouting rumour or rubbish. But yeah, not too much else out there. Obviously saw the Lewis O'Brien link, but that's been rubbish because he's on his way to Swansea, as Jack said earlier. Callum, if we play a 3 at the back, my thoughts are we need 2 potentially wide players in those left wing, right wing back positions. But then there's going to be other people that are going to say, no, we need another striker. We need another 10. Where really is the focus? And if we are going to be signing players, look, we might not sign 6 players, we might not sign 5 players. If we can sign 2 players, has it got to be in those wide areas? Or do you think we're more desperate for a 10 or another striker? What's your thoughts?
Well, I've said over the last few days that towards the back end of the transfer window, obviously, since we knew the cash and deal was going through and we're going to have this little bit of a pot to play with, I think with where the injury record is at the moment, I think, a centre mid for me, I think still needs to happen because we need that player who can come and control it because Ozo still looks like he's still coming back to fitness and we need someone else with him to give that bit of squad depth. So centre mid. I think fullbacks, wing backs, like you said, are pivotal, left or right. Ideally, someone who can play either, but I think the fact that we've only got Elder and then Fozzie technically behind him, Ozzy technically behind him, but that's it. And then they're on the right wing back. Wilson's obviously, hopefully, going to be coming back in the next week or two, but obviously Niambe's not a wing back. You've got Jackson who's out there who's less said about him the better. And then you're then looking at we were looking at, I think, potential another centre half, and you're kind of looking at it going, well, what is going to happen in? You've got less than, just over 24 hours, and I think we need at least 2 or 3 signings, but unless the cards have been kept very, very close to the chest of Derby County, I'm not seeing anything to suggest that we're going to get 2 or 3. It might only be 1. And if that's the case, then I'm very, very concerned that we're not going to have the strength in depth going into the back end of the season.
Yeah, I agree with you, Callum. To be fair, mate, I think left back it's been a concern all season. I think relying on Forsyth, and again, excellent servant, he's done the club incredibly well, but we cannot rely on a 35-year-old left back to play left wing back in this modern age of football, especially with the demand of crossing the ball a lot. And we've seen it with Callum Elder as well. I think Elder's been okay this season. I don't think any of us could be pretty, with Elder? Last season was pretty poor, wasn't it? And didn't fill me with too much. He's been okay this year. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he's the answer. And I think left back is the biggest priority. Well, left wing back, whatever you want to call it. I think if we're talking priority, it has to be left back. It has to be, if you're not going to play him in the 10, get a proper number 10. Stop trying to shoehorn Marcus Harnison as a 10. He's not. Just get a proper number 10. If you don't want to play Kenzo there, that's fine. But play somebody there who is a 10. And for me, if that's the 2, brilliant. I don't think there's going to be more than 2. I think in an ideal world, there'd be 6 covering pretty much the whole pitch. It's just not going to happen, is it? So, yeah, left backs and a creative midfielder, which can be from deep, it can be from up higher at the pitch. Just somebody in the middle of the pitch who can make a chance, because at the minute, yeah, crossing the ball isn't fun, is it?
Jamie, do you think we need someone who's championship proven, or do you reckon we need to keep exploring this foreign market that we're doing, or do you reckon we do need some proven, more proven championship targets?
But it's difficult, isn't it? Because we're at the 11th hour, and anything now is going to come at a cost. Everyone knows that we've got X amount of money in the bank, so of course their first thing is going to be, no, you need to pay us more.
And as we said as well.
There's a desperation. And as we've said before, who looks at, and I'm so surprised that we've managed to get Salverson's mate from Norway, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Because who looks at this team and goes, you know what, I really want to play in it. Matt Clark wants to play in it at the moment, but the only reason he does is because he wants to play football. Yeah. He signed a 3-month contract or whatever it is. And come the end of the season, if we're down, he's gone. So there's no commitment there. And I completely understand it. Who is going to look at it and think, yeah, this is where I want to play my football? If you're a midfielder, and we've said it about Max Bird left because of what Kenzo's going through at the moment. Kenzo is just going through Max Bird season last season. It's really, really difficult to be excited about playing this brand of football. But it's Derby County. We're biased because we love them. We do. We love them, and they're a big club. If you are coming from abroad, and Salverson and also Langu said, it's a big club, the fans, Zetterstrom said it, Kenzo said the same thing as well. So maybe if we can get a better quality player from abroad for less money, then that's the route we've got to go down. But like I said, 11th hour, it's gonna be tricky. The title of this episode we haven't even discussed really, and it's going to be my final question. Unless Jack, you've got something else to say.
Just a quick one. With it being deadline day tomorrow night, it's going to have to be domestic for me, because a lot of foreign transfers, obviously, they take time. They're not just going to happen like that. You've got to get the player, you've got to meet the player, you've got to bring him back over here, you've got to do the medical, you've got to make the promises to the player as if, well, we're going to find you an accommodation. Well, all right, where are you going to put him for a few weeks before he's settled in? Again, domestic market, if you can get somebody localish who doesn't have to change too much of their life to come and join us for a few months, who could be out of contract at the end of the season or in his last 12 months, that's the market. That's what we should be looking at now, because the foreign signings are a risk. And obviously, we think Langus is great, and hopefully he is. But if he's a bust, we have sort of wasted time, because he will come good. He's young. He will come good. But we need here and now. We can't just hope that Vikings have got another left back or another centre midfielder, because we're running out of Vikings players to sign now, aren't we? We'll have their kit man and manager soon.
Yeah.
Well, we have got a loan spot still. We have still got a loan spot.
Well, let's hope it's somebody good.
I didn't realise that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer went to Besiktas. I thought he was going to be our next manager. But as I said with the question, let's look at this window. Let's say we sign another 2 players and we sign 2 wide players. I mean, it will hinge massively on who those 2 players are. But Cal, Salverson, Langus, and also Matthew Clark, have we got enough there to change our fortunes and change this situation we find ourselves in? Or, as a lot of fans are saying in the comments and saying on the terraces, I think we might be going one way.
They can, and I think they will, just not with one. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at now. I think the players are there. I think transfers can have a positive impact. I just don't think they are been put in the right positions to do that. So, but we'll see. We'll see, especially what happens after Norwich, because I think after that point there needs to be something done.
Yeah, I agree.
Either way.
Yeah, I agree. I think that all the players are there. I think it's whether Ward's brave enough to take the handbrake off, because at the minute we're trying to drive in first gear with the handbrake pulled up to the max. Like, the handbrake's vertical. Just let it loose. We've seen it in spells. 20 minutes of games where we look really good. Just do it. If we get beat 4-0 by somebody who should beat us, so be it. But when we're playing these teams, like, Oxford flying, but that's a side we should be trying to beat. And Cardiff away was the key example. They're a side we should be trying to beat. We can't go in with any fear anymore. The fear should be relegation. It's not the 11 men on the other side of the field. It's that bottom 3. It's that dotted line. It's the difference between potentially playing Southampton or Stevenage. Like, we have to eventually realise, let the handbrake off. Let's go for it. Teams, we haven't lost by 4 or 5 goals all season because we are so cautious. This is why Plymouth get beat. This is why Cardiff got thumped 7-0. Ward admitted we didn't go to Leeds to try and win. Cardiff did. They got battered, but they tried. They went to win the game. And I'd rather us give it a go and concede 3 or 4 than just sit, lose 1-0 and go, oh, well, we ran hard. Brilliant. Like, we need more. We need to eventually let the handbrake off. Let's go for it. Let's just see, because we have the pieces. The jigsaw is almost complete. And it is just a few little pieces in the middle of the picture, and we'll be okay.
It's currently on the floor at the moment.
Well, yeah, true. It's like a bad game of Monopoly at the minute, isn't it? We flip the board and everyone's money's everywhere. Let's just hope we can pick the board back up and the pieces have stayed on. And, again, it's a silly Paul Warne analogy, this, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Well, storylines have a habit of writing themselves. Next up is Norwich away. As we know, Paul Warne supports what club? Norwich. Where's he from? Norwich. So we'll have to see what happens there. Thank you, everyone, for listening. It's been a whirlwind of almost 50 minutes. We've ran over. I didn't even think we'd have enough to talk about, but thanks for the therapy. Thanks for joining us. Sorry we didn't get to all of your comments, but we do see them all. If you're watching this or listening to this back, do get your comments in. We read everyone. We'll interact with everyone. Let's keep the faith. We go away to Norwich. look, miracles do and will happen if someone turns off the floodlights. If you have enjoyed this one, please do go rate us 5-star for wherever you get your podcast from. We'll obviously be back midweek. We'll be back hopefully talking about some new players in the door. Watch this space. Enjoy transfer deadline day. It's goodbye from me.
Thank you to over the 1,000 who listen, guys. We're going to need to stick together. It's a goodbye from me.
Yeah, well, as we say, deadline day tomorrow. Hopefully some more new faces and we can say hello to them. But goodbye from me, lastly.
We'll see you on Wednesday.